Hi everyone, welcome back to class. Today we're going to talk about due process. Now, what is due process? We've been talking about the judicial system and crimes, courts, the cases. So now it's time for due process. Due process is simply when society turns to government so that it can define crime and then punish it. You got to remember, the law reflects the values of the people who make and enforce the law. In criminal law, the aim is punishment. In civil law, the remedy, that we use to redress an injury, is relief or compensation. That's why in criminal law we have jails. We have people that have committed crimes, and in order to punish them so that society can learn from that, we end up having people incarcerated. In civil law, remember, it is about paying someone back for the harm that they were caused. It is about money or some sort of relief. Now, civil law. Civil law, of course, deals primarily with private rights. This deals with relationships, obligations, and responsibilities. This means that we are talking about you versus someone else, a company versus another company. You slip and fall at Walmart. You can sue Walmart if they did not have any indications that there was a hazard there. In this instance, cases are brought by plaintiffs. These are the people who are bringing the charge against someone else. As I said, these are usually private individuals or corporations, companies. Of course, the remedy in this instance is going to be compensation of some sort. You are looking for a monetary value that will compensate you for the injury that you have had. Now, civil law, that law that pertains to us as individuals, has been around for a long time. Of course, it is based on common law. This means that it is what people have grown to know. It is what is commonly common law, right? It is what is common among society. It's just that civil law has now been written down. Now, judge-made law is based on precedents. What a judge rules from the bench has to have some sort of background on which it will rely. That is precedent. Precedent are those cases that have come before the one that is currently in front of the court. If the circumstances are similar, then you can use the outcome of the previous case to help you rule on the current case. Now, statutory law. This is the law that has been passed by legislative bodies. In other words, it is what has been written, it has been created and written down, and it is what we are following. Now, statutory law. This means that it was passed by the legislative bodies. So the people in Austin, the representatives and the senators that we elect at the state level, are the ones writing our civil law. And of course, it is being written down in code books. Well, nowadays, with the advent of all of the electronic media that we have, you can find these online. And if you will notice, the blue link indicates that there is an outside website that you can go to. When I said that the origination of civil law has been around for many years, I am talking about such things as the Code of Hammurabi. You can see just how far back law has been in existence. And we are talking ancient times here, people. Now, types of civil law. Civil law, of course, deals with the people-to-people laws. This means that there is more than one type. Civil law is the big umbrella terminology, but this can also mean that civil law in the state of Texas can deal with common law marriage. The link, of course, will take you to a site where you can find out the things that you need to know if you are in a common law marriage. It does not take a lot to be in a common law marriage. Be aware of that. If you are cohabitating with someone, you present yourself as a spouse out of expedience or because it is easier than trying to explain its complicated relationship. Don't be surprised if you find out that you are in a common law marriage. Now, homestead laws are those laws that pertain to your home, to your house, your property. In the state of Texas, governmental agencies cannot take your home away because you owe debt. And by debt, I mean you have outstanding bills. Now, your house can be sold if you have not kept up with paying your property taxes. Property taxes in Texas, very important because this is how the state of Texas has its income. This is its biggest source of income. Now, as far as other debt, credit card bills, loans, so long as you have kept up your home payment and you owe other bills, your house cannot be taken away from you in order to satisfy those other obligations you have. Now, probate. Probate is that matter that deals with wills and estates. If someone in your family passes away, chances are good that their estate should be probated. That means that if they have left a will behind, that information, that will, needs to be filed with the county court so that whoever's in charge of the estate can properly dispose of the deceased person's debts and property, home, anything that the family might want to keep. Otherwise, the rest of the deceased person's property can then be sold off or can be given to the rest of the family in such a fashion that the courts will recognize that you as an heir or as the representative of the estate has the right to do this. Again, whenever you see a blue link, this means there is a click through to an outside web page. Please, when you have time, follow through. It is not anything that you will be tested on, but it does have pertinent information, and if you are interested, you can read further on any of these subjects. Now, corporation law. Corporation law is commercial litigation. It is commercial law. It deals with contracts and the business dealings of businesses. This is any kind of contract between more than two companies, whether it's transporting cargo, buying assets, you name it, it's there. Corporations do a lot of work. It's not just as simple as conducting business. In Texas, of course, we have right to work laws. This means you have a right to work with a minimum expectation that you will get paid. As an employer, your boss has the obligation to pay you for work. So you work, you should get paid. Otherwise, there are laws to protect you. Now, negligence. When it comes to negligence, we are talking about that slip and fall at Walmart, or somebody bumps into you in your vehicle and you end up with some sort of injury. So now you have the ability to sue that person or that company for their negligence because of something they did or they did not do. In the instance of the slip and fall case, did the company or the store put out warnings that the floor was wet? Was it roped off? Were there indications in English and Spanish to show that you should be careful? This is negligence. The fact that they either did not do enough or that they did nothing. Now, slander and libel. This is when you maliciously and with the intent to harm either say or write something negative about another individual. Slander is saying, speaking. Libel is writing, whether it's a news article, something on a social media post. Be aware you are subject to slander and libel, especially if you are trying to cause harm. Now, as with all laws, there are issues that have come up. The first one is tort reform. Laws that are passed by the legislature in order to try to minimize as much litigation as we have around us. Such litigation restricts lawsuits by prison inmates, frivolous lawsuits. The big one is limiting the liability in civil cases that involve multiple defendants. When we are talking about civil cases involving multiple defendants, we are talking about big cases such as the Roundup weed killer case, where people have indicated that they have ended up with cancer because of their continued use of Roundup, either in their jobs or in their daily lives. Um, there have been individuals that have sued the maker of Roundup because they say that the Roundup, the chemicals in Roundup, have caused them to get cancer. There have been multiple cases where individuals have won their case and juries have awarded them in the hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, this does not mean that they will actually see this much money, just that these juries have awarded these plaintiffs, the injured party, this much in their remedy. Now, what we are trying to do to limit the now, all right, with criminal law, what we are concerned with is public morality. We are trying to curb your behavior. You know, it is definitely up to society to decide what is right and what is wrong. What kind of behavior should you be showing out in public, right? Of course, as with civil law, the government is involved in creating these laws. It is up to the same legislature that created the civil laws to create criminal laws. Here we are trying to make sure that you behave. So the cases in this instance are going to be prosecuted by public officials. These public officials are the district attorneys of the counties in which you commit your offense. With criminal law, our aim is to punish you. We are trying to change your behavior to what society has deemed is correct behavior. So we are going to punish you with these instances. We are looking at fines or jail time. Now, there are two types of crime. First, we will start with federal crime. Only 5% of crimes that are prosecuted under federal law. The majority of crimes are state crimes. Now, federal crimes are those that are committed on the high seas. If you are working offshore, I say, if you do something that is against federal law, you could be charged with a federal crime. Crimes that are committed on federal property are also federal crimes. Anything that involves the crossing of state or national boundaries and you commit a crime while doing that, you have now committed a federal crime. If for some reason you decide to interfere with interstate commerce, guess what? Interstate commerce, those big rigs coming back and forth between Houston and Louisiana, or Texas and Arkansas, or up to Oklahoma, if they are interfered with in any way, then that is considered a federal crime. Of course, the big one is the crimes committed against the national government, treason. I don't know if you guys will remember or have heard of the Oklahoma City bombing. This is when two individuals bombed the federal building in Oklahoma City, and we had hundreds of people die. The building came down. They were charged with a crime against the national government. They were considered domestic terrorists. That is a federal crime. But as the first point notes, it is only about 5% of the crimes that are prosecuted that are considered federal crimes. Most of the things that people do that are considered criminal are state criminal offenses. This means they have broken a law that was written by the state and not the federal government. Now, the second type of crimes are state crimes. And in Texas, we have two types of crime. We have felonies, first of all. Now, felonies are categorized or classified by degrees. This means there's a first-degree felony, a second-degree felony, and a third-degree felony. These felonies or these crimes are crimes that are much more serious and are crimes such as murder or robbery. The second type of crime in the state of Texas is, of course, misdemeanor crimes. These are classified by letters. This would be your Class A misdemeanor, Class B misdemeanor, and Class C misdemeanors. These are much lower level crimes such as traffic violations, violations of city ordinances, minors in possession, that kind of thing. And then, of course, there are those crimes that are considered victimless crimes. Victimless in the sense that no one individual was physically hurt. These are considered crimes such as prostitution or gambling. If you are going to participate in one of these types of activities, you go in knowing that the only person that is being hurt is yourself. So we consider them victimless crimes. Now, as I was talking about the felonies and misdemeanors and how they are classified, look at this chart and be aware that when we are talking about felonies and misdemeanors, we always start at the bottom and work our way up when it comes to the degree of crime and which one is the least. As you will see, Class C is at the very bottom of the list. A Class C misdemeanor means that there are no jail sentences. The most you can get is a $500 fine, and then we work our way up from there. So we will start with a Class C misdemeanor, and you can see some of the crimes that are included in this. Smoking on a public elevator, disorderly conduct, right? Indecent exposure. If you steal something that's less than $50, right? And then we're going to work our way up to the Class B, which is a little bit more and different. You're a tad bit more reckless, right? Now this one is where you start seeing jail time with Class B misdemeanors, up to 180 days and a $2,000 fine. So we are looking at crimes. When we classify them, we are starting at the bottom and working our way up. So Class C is the least amount crime you can commit. Class B is next, and then a Class A misdemeanor. Class A misdemeanor, note, you can get up to a year in jail and your fine doubles up to $4,000. Now, between misdemeanors and felonies, you will find that there is a state jail felony. As you will note, state jail felony includes theft of money or property that is greater than $1,500. This is what we are talking about, burglary of a building. This is a building or a business other than a habitation, meaning this is burglary of anything other than a home. You are selling less than a gram of narcotics, auto theft or forgery. Here you can get anywhere from 180 days to 2 years in jail and up to a $10,000 fine. The fines from here on will stay at $10,000. The amount of your jail term, of course, is going to vary from here on up. Note, state jail felony is that intermediate type of crime where it's too much for a misdemeanor but not quite enough to be considered a full-on state felony. So this is a state jail felony. Now, the actual felonies, as you will see, start with a third-degree felony first. This is the least of the felony classifications. This includes theft of money, of course, of more than $20,000, drive-by shootings, and involuntary manslaughter. Here, your jail terms can be anywhere from 2 to 10 years. Now, this is the same way as the misdemeanors. Third degree first, then second, and then first degree felony. First degree felony is that one level below capital murder, and this is the highest of the actual felony crimes at first degree. And you can see each one of these has examples of which of these crimes we are talking about. Of course, with the highest offense, with the most heinous of offenses, we are talking about capital murder charges. This includes, of course, the murder of a peace officer or any other first responder, of a prison guard, of children younger than 6. If you hire someone to kill somebody for you, capital murder charges will be filed. And then, of course, there is also committing murder while committing certain other felonies. Mass murder. These are all offenses that would fall under the capital murder charge. So please know which way the classifications work, and by that I mean that they go C, B, and A, and 3, 2, and 1, or third, second, and first when it comes to felonies. Now this is just for your information and amusement. Please take a moment and read some of the things that are on here. We see that when we write crimes, we being the legislatures at the state level, we are trying to keep our society safe, and we are also trying to write laws that will benefit everyone. However, every once in a while you will find laws that are very strictly and very plainly just hilarious and irrelevant, and sometimes it makes you wonder who thought of that. So take a minute, read the ones on this slide, and you will see that there are criminal laws out there that just make no sense. Now, when it comes to the criminal, who commits the crime, there are some similarities that you should be aware of. Now, these similarities are characteristics that have been drawn from all of the information that the FBI gathers. As you will see, the similarities in the criminal are that most criminals are young or start out young, are considered poor, are racial or an ethnic minority, Some may have acute emotional problems. If they are being a criminal, it is considered that they have little value for the law. And in many instances, the FBI has found that gang membership is a part of their demographic and that they are using gang membership to provide themselves with a family. Now, of course, here is a link to the FBI crime statistics. Please take a moment and look at that when you get a chance. Now, as I said, do not think that these are the only characteristics of a criminal. Just know that these are the most common, and these are similarities that have been found in many of those people that have been profiled and that are considered the criminal. Okay, now, if we've talked about the criminal, we have to talk about the victim. Historically, since 1991, crime has actually declined. This means there have been less crimes committed, and we know this because we are now keeping track, and we have been for a long time. However, the highest rates of victimizations are still occurring in the poor and urban areas of our communities. Usually this means in our own neighborhoods, and it is crimes against our own friends and families, right? We are committing crimes against ourselves and our loved ones. In the state of Texas, victims have the right to be informed of investigations and of court proceedings. There is in Harris County an actual liaison between the victims of crimes and the court system. Now, law enforcement. As I have mentioned, the state legislature is the one in charge of defining crimes. This means that the legislature is the one writing the laws, creating the laws that are now considered criminal laws. Therefore, they are defining crime. They are the ones deciding what is criminal and what is not. Now, there are state agencies and local law officials that will be enforcing these crimes. And by those, we are talking about the local police, our sheriffs, our constables. And at the state level, we have the Department of Public Safety and the Texas Rangers. They are the ones that are responsible for enforcing the laws. Now, as a side note, for those of you that are outdoors people that like to go hunt or that like to go fish, be aware that the Texas Parks and Wildlife Rangers, they are licensed peace officers. This means that if they see a crime being committed, then they will enforce the law. That is why you will see that Texas Parks and Wildlife Rangers are also at crime sites, or they help their local law enforcement such as sheriffs and police departments serve warrants or help them if there is need. Now, as you can see by this chart, these are some of the crimes that we know of. These are some of the crimes that we are using for this information graphic here. What we are looking at is the number of percentage of crimes that are cleared versus the actual total crime, right? If we are talking about murder, there is an 80% chance that your murder or that a murder will be solved. All right, so as we were speaking, the last thing I want you to get from this chart is that not all crimes are solved at the same rate as the most heinous of them, being murder or even rape. As you will see, there are such crimes that will never get solved, such as arson or motor vehicle theft. So just be aware that the numbers are very skewed, and a lot depends on evidence and the situation of each crime.